Video games have been a common form of entertainment for quite a while now. Whether you want to relax, compete, or take your anger out at someone, video games have always been there for you. In fact, video games have never been as available to the average human as today. You can play all kinds of video games on your computer, on your console, on your phone, on your tablet, or whatever type of device you could think of. This, however, wasn't always the case. Video games first became prominent during the golden age of arcade games back in the 1970s. Remember Space Invaders, remember Pac-Man, or Frogger, or even the original Donkey Kong? They were all first developed for arcade machines, which were limited and could have only been found in arcade stores. Despite this, they remained popular in the 1970s and 1980s until the surge in popularity of home video game systems such as the NES. There was a slight resurgence in popularity of arcade games in the 1990s due to the release of games such as Street Fighter II, Mortal Kombat and Tekken, but it lasted shortly. The availability and accessibility of video games increased in the 1990s and the early 2000s thanks to PlayStation, Nintendo 64 and Sega Saturn. PC games also slowly became increasingly available to the average gamer thanks to developers shifting their focus towards emerging technologies such as Direct3D from Microsoft. Despite all this, some games have been restricted and banned in certain countries since the 1990s for various reasons. So far, video games have usually been banned in different countries for the promotion of violence, drugs, sexual content, or politics. For example, Australia and Germany have the most extensive lists of banned and restricted video games. In Australia, all media, including films, television programs, and video games, is regulated by the Australian Classification Board, or ACB. If it is a body deems something to be inappropriate, then that work is listed as refused classification and is forbidden from being sold in the country. In Germany, the Federal Agency for Child and Youth Protection from the media oversees the media that it deems to be inappropriate to young people. This agency publishes a list of restricted media known as the Index. Content inside this list is divided into 4 sublists. 2 of the lists include media classified as harmful to minors, while the other 2 include media that is deemed to have criminal content. For example, it violates the Criminal Code of Germany. The probably most known example of a banned video game is Manhunt 2, developed and published by Rockstar. This 2007 video game follows Daniel Lamb, a scientist who escaped from a mental asylum after a failed experiment by a secret government project called the Pikmin Project. Suffering from amnesia and violent hallucinations, Daniel is guided by a mysterious voice named Leo Casper. The plot explores themes of identity, morality, and psychological manipulation, and slowly reveals that Leo is more than a voice, but a former government agent that was put up in the asylum by the Pikmin Project. From its beginning, the game became embroiled in controversy due to its extreme violence and disturbing themes. The British Board of Film Classification banned the game in the United Kingdom for constantly encouraging visceral killing and for its casual sadism and unremitting bleakness. The original Manhunt, released in 2003, was not banned in the country but was instead given an 18+ restriction. Despite this, a tragic moment occurred in the country in February 2004 when a teenager named Var Leblanc murdered a 14-year-old Stefan Pekira in Leicester. Some say that the murderer was inspired by Manhunt, though Rockstar has denied that there are any links between the murderer and the game, citing the 18+ rating in the United Kingdom. LeBlanc's lawyer had also said that the reason he killed Stefan is rooted not in video games, but in fear, in desperation born of fear, and that he owed £75 to a gang member. LeBlanc was later sentenced that year to life in jail. Back to Manhunt 2. The sequel therefore became the first game to be denied the classification since 1997. In Ireland, the Irish Film Classification Office also banned the game for its non-stop visceral violence. John Keller, the IFCO director, said that there is no context in this one other than killing. It is non-stop, it is constant, it is visceral. People are killed in every possible kind of way. If you haven't guessed it already, Germany also banned the game for its portrayal of violence. This, however, wasn't the first time they'd done it, considering that the original Manhunt game was also banned in the country. After the BBFC and the IFC ratings, the Entertainment Software Rating Board also issued an adult-only rating in the United States, meaning that retail stores such as Walmart, GameStop and Target would not sell the game. Nintendo, Microsoft and Sony also released statements stating that they do not allow adult-only games on their platforms. Rockstar was really screwed at this point, but they eventually decided to change the game a bit and they censored parts of it to satisfy the agencies. After Rockstar submitted the game again to ESRB and BBFC, ESRB lowered their rating to M, which is 70+, while BBFC again refused to classify the game. The ESRB's decision to lower their rating was criticized by several US senators, including Joe Lieberman and Hillary Clinton, who asked ESRB to reconsider re-rating the game adult-only. Upon the game's release, the game was temporarily banned in New Zealand and South Korea, while Italy also considered banning the game, but it never went into effect. In Australia, the game was never submitted to ACB, technically making it also a banned game in that country. Another game that was initially heavily restricted was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, again a title from Rockstar. This 2004 game follows Carl Johnson, or CJ, who returns to Los Santos after the murder of his mother. He finds his old gang, the Grove Street families, in decline and sets out to restore their power while navigating betrayal, gang wars and corrupt cops. CJ travels across three major cities, Los Santos, San Fierro and Las Venturas, building criminal empires and uncovering a deeper conspiracy involving his brother's wrongful imprisonment. In the end, CJ takes revenge, reclaims his neighborhood, and restores his family's honor. The game was initially controversial for its portrayal of gang violence, drug use, carjacking, and murder, which led the game to be given the M rating by ESRB. Furthermore, Rockstar also wanted to introduce more role-playing games in the game, but were cautious about introducing nudity, considering that they knew that San Andreas would then likely be rated as adult-only game, which would heavily limit the presence of the game in stores. Sam Hauser, the president of Rockstar Games, however, insisted on adding sexual content to the game, and they successfully did, but shortly before the PlayStation 2 release date, Rockstar implemented code changes which made the sexual content inaccessible to the player but still present in-game. Shortly after the game's release for PlayStation 2, a group of modders found the file names that indicated that sexual content is still present in the game. Once the Windows version was released to the public in 2005, modders were able to alter the game script and unlock a hidden sex minigame. They called the patch Hot Coffee and released it on GTAGarage.com in June 2005. Rockstar initially stayed silent on the patch despite learning about it soon after its release. A month after its release, Rockstar released a statement in which they denied having any responsibility for the minigame, instead claiming that it was the work of a group of hackers. Soon after, the ESRB re-rated the game from M to adult only. Retailers such as Walmart, Target and Best Buy pulled the game out of their stores, while the Australian ACB banned the game in its country. In August, Rockstar published a patch that effectively removed Hot Coffee from the game, and a month later the game was re-rated to M in the United States. What about other games? Well, let's go back to Australia for a second. The Australian ACB also banned Hotline Miami 2 from the country because of a scene involving sexual violence in the game's tutorial. When you control the pig butcher, you are ordered to finish a girl, to sexually assault her while she tries to escape. In response, the developer suggested a fans pirate the game. In 2019, the game was briefly available on Nintendo Switch, and in 2024 the same occurred for the PlayStation 5 release. Australia also banned South Park: The Stick of Truth from this country due to the game having scenes where a player is anally probed by an alien and where a player performs an abortion. Ubisoft, the game's developer, however, censored the scenes by adding an image of a statue, a description of events depicted in the scene. After this change, ABC rated the game 18+. Honorable mentions also go to Left 4 Dead 2 for being formally banned in the country until 2014. Next on the list, Germany again. Besides Manhunt, Germany also previously forbade Wolfenstein, Dead Rising 2 and Left 4 Dead 2 in the country. I think the Wolfenstein ban is self-explanatory considering that Germany does not allow you those World War II symbols and the mustache man in the media. This was however until 2018 when the German Entertainment Software Self-Regulation Body ruled that games with such depiction should be decided on a case-by-case basis, ultimately allowing Wolfenstein to be sold in the country. Back to Asia, remember Half-Life from Valve? Well, in Singapore it was temporarily banned for a week in 2000 due to parental control issues. Another country that has interestingly censored and banned video games is probably China. For example, I know that Counter-Strike 2, while not banned, is heavily censored in order to comply with the standards in the country. For some reason they do not like skulls, and instead of blood you'll see black liquid when shooting a player. Roblox, for example, has been banned in the country and restricted in Jordan, North Korea, Oman and Turkey. China banned the game because it was developed by an American company and because of allegedly promoting anti-communist propaganda, therefore aiming to protect Chinese citizens from anti-communist influence. Turkey banned the game for having gambling and child sexual abuse content. For China, honorable mentions also go to Fortnite, which has been banned because of blood and gore, and Battlefield 4 for being anti-China. In Battlefield 4, China determined that it was presented negatively due to highlighting some citizens that pushed for democratic reform in China, describing it as a cultural invasion. The conclusion. Well, sometimes countries and lawmakers will try to go and severely restrict or even completely ban games from their countries for possibly valid reasons, such as heavily promoting violence or having sexual content. However, for most of the time this is not proven to be the case. So where do we draw the line between free expression and harmful content? It's a question that goes far beyond video games. On one hand, games are a form of art. They can provoke and disturb us just like film or literature. But on the other hand, they're interactive, immersive and often consumed by young audiences, which makes them more complicated than traditional media. Should satire, horror or shock value be censored simply because it's uncomfortable? Or should we allow creators to explore even the darkest corners of human imagination, trusting audiences to judge it for themselves? These are questions with no easy answers. But one thing is clear, as video games continue to grow as powerful medium for storytelling and cultural expression, debates around censorship, art and responsibility will only become more intense.